Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to use the divide Photoshop action. The way this action works is that you start off with your photo, you then fill in your subject with a color, you run the action, and this is what this effect creates for you. Okay, now there are a few options with this action. Firstly, there is 6 different directions you can choose. So you've got horizontal, and then it starts to work its way around, so you can pick any one of these directions. Okay, and each direction comes with 3 different bar lengths. So you've got short, medium, and long. Alright, so I'll talk to you about how to use all those when we jump into Photoshop. And then when I'm done with that first example, I'm going to open up this photo here and I'm going to recreate this. Okay, so I'm going to add, play around with the color a bit and add some glows to these warmer tones. Alright, so I'll jump into Photoshop now. Okay, so I've got my photo here, and there's just a couple things you need to check off just to make sure your file was set up correctly and that you don't run into any errors when you play back the action. So firstly, when you've opened up your photo, look into your layer panel, click on this top right hand corner icon, scroll down to panel options, and right down the bottom here, make sure add copy to copied layers and groups is ticked. Click OK. Next, go to image mode. Make sure you're in RGB color mode and 8 bits channel is selected. Next, still in the image menu, go to image size. Now you want to work with a higher resolution photo with this action. Okay, I recommend photos in the range of 2000 to 4000 pixels. Okay, so if you say open up your photo and it's only 1500 pixels wide, scale it up to at least 2000 pixels, higher the better. Alright, so I will cancel that. Just going to put my layer panel back. Excuse me. Alright, so what we need to do now is create a new layer. So go to layer, new layer, and this must be called brush, all in lowercase letters. Okay, if you spell that with an uppercase letter, you will get a select error straight away when you run the action. So click OK. So the idea with the brush layer is that you have it selected and then you fill in your subject with a color. It doesn't matter what color. Alright, so I am going to hit W to grab my wand tool, magic wand tool, set my tolerance to 22, and I'm just going to start clicking on the white background here. Okay, and you can see it hasn't done a great selection. It's sort of cut into my subject here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to invert this selection. So Control Shift I or Command Shift I. Okay, now I just want to fill that selection with a color. So my foreground color is black at the moment. I'll just change that to a red, it's just brighter. And to fill a selection with a foreground color, you hold down Alt backspace, so Option backspace. Okay, now I'm just going to use my pen tool here. And I'll fast forward the video a bit because I'm just going to trace around my subject and fill in the areas where it hasn't done a great job. So I'll just speed the video up here to get through this part. Okay, so I've just done a pretty quick outline of my subject and I filled him in with the color, so that's all ready to go. Alright, so what we need to do now is load up the Actions panel. So go to Window, Actions, and it will pop up to the side here. Click on this icon here and go down to Load Actions. Okay, now just navigate to the divide.atn file, it came with a download, and it will pop up here. Okay, so when you open up the divide folder, there's quite a few different actions in here. So I'll explain to you what all these do. Firstly, right down the bottom here, you've got all these ones that say don't touch. Okay, so yeah, don't touch these actions, don't rename them, don't delete them. Okay, these actions need these actions to function properly, so don't do anything with those. Secondly, you cannot rename this folder. Okay, it must be left called divide, otherwise if you rename that then play the action, you'll run into, it's called a play error. So don't rename that folder. So firstly, this group of actions here, I've got 15 degrees and I've got this dash here. That dash is just indicating what direction the bars are going to go off into. So it's going to go 15 degrees off at that angle, okay? And then you've got your different lengths. You've got short, medium, and long. So what I might do, I'll just create a new layer for a second. You don't need to do this, I'm just demonstrating these angles. So I'm just going to create a bar, just going to fill that black. So you've got 15 degrees going up in that direction. So basically, if I just rotate this bar, and when I rotate it, you can see the angle change in there. See 45 degrees, 30 degrees, 15 degrees. So this first action is just representing this angle here. So the bars are going to go off in that direction. Okay? And then when you look down, you've got 45 degrees. So that's going to go off in that direction. Okay? And then you've got these ones down here, 15 degrees in the opposite direction. So I'll just undo that. So this one here is going to go off in that direction, 15 degrees that way. This one's going to go 45 degrees that way. Alright? And then you've got vertical and horizontal. Alright, so I'll just delete this layer. So I kind of want the bars to follow the angle that this guy's sort of on a lean, the way he's leaning. So I'm going to choose 45 degrees going this way, okay? Because I think that's going to match him quite well. So all you need to do there is select your angle and press play on the action. Alright. Now after you've pressed play, there's going to be a window pop up in a few seconds. So I'll talk to you about what to do there. Alright, so here's the window. I won't read through all this because I'll explain what to do in this next step. So just click continue on this window, alright, and then you'll get this color range window pop up. Now there's going to be 4 of these windows that pop up, and it's just the same step you need to repeat for each window, alright. And so what you need to do here is you'll notice that your subject is turned into all these little squares, okay. Now when you start clicking on these squares, you'll see the selection update in the color range window. And what this represents, these white boxes, that represents the bars which will be created after the action is complete. Okay. Now the reason why there's 4 windows is that each one of these color range windows will represent the width of those bars. So the first color range window will represent the thinnest bars created by the action. So let me just open up this example here. So this first color range window that pops up, alright, it's representing these thin bars. So you see these really thin bars here? That's those ones, okay? So as you click around, just keep that in mind. So if I just clicked OK there, I'm only going to create just a couple of thin lines. This one's going to create a lot. Now if you hold down Shift while you're clicking around, that's just going to increase the selection. So if I wanted a ton of thin lines, I could fill in pretty much my entire subject there, and then the end result would have thin lines everywhere. Alright, so that's for you to experiment with, but I generally just like to go with a reasonable amount here. So click OK when you've made a selection. Now you must make a selection. If you don't make a selection here, okay, and your image is completely black, and then you click OK, you're going to run into a contract error straight away. So you must have a box selected. So click OK, and then you move on to the next width. So the second window that pops up, I'll get this example back over again. The second color range window that shows up represents the bars which run over the top of your subject. So you can see these bars cutting through this guy here. So that, the second window is what that represents. So if I wanted a heap of lines running through it, I would hold down Shift and click on more squares. If you only want a couple, you just need to click around until you get a smaller amount, maybe something like that. So I'll click OK. Next, we're getting to the thicker bars now. The thicker bars sit more in the background here, like these ones here. Alright, so you can see how nothing's selected straight away. So if I clicked OK, I'd run into an error. So let's just click around. So if I just clicked OK there, the end result's only going to create 1 bar at this width. So I don't want that. I'll hold down Shift, and you can just just click around and hold down Shift to get different combinations. I think I'll run with that. Okay, and this is the last one. This is the thickest bars created by the action. So I might run with that. So I will click OK. And that's all you need to do. So the action will now take about 1 to 2 minutes to play back. That's going to come down to the size of your photo and the speed of your computer. So I'll fast forward the video and I'll get to the result, and then we're going to go down through all the layers and I'll tell you what they do. Alright, action's all done. So I'll just collapse the actions panel now. I'll just widen this up a bit. So if you now look into your layer panel when the action's finished playing back, you'll notice that the divide folder is selected. Now if you scroll down, you can see all the folders are left open. It's really messy at the moment. So what you want to do is collapse them all. So to do that, you hold down Control, Alt or Command Option and click on this arrow next to the folder icon. Click on that, then reopen the folder, and then everything is collapsed. Okay, so you have to do this step manually because you can't record it in actions. Alright, so just remember to do that every time you run a action. Now, so I'm going to go down through all the folders, all the layers, talk to you about what they do. But the first layer I'll jump to is this one here called Reveal Normal Photo. In brackets here, I've got Brush Mask. Now, if you've used my actions before, you might be familiar with this one. Basically, it's there if you want to clear up any details. So say you can see my subject's face here, how some of these bars have cut into his face. Now, if there's, most of the time when you run the action, if you run it on a person, you're going to get these bars cut into your subject's face. Now, if you want to hide those, you brush white onto this layer mask here. If I hold down Shift and just hide this mask, okay, you'll see that it's just a cutout of our brush layer. Okay, it's put on top of all the effects. So if you start brushing white into this mask to reveal that layer, you're going to override. So I'll just increase my brush opacity. It's really low. You're going to override all these other effects. So if I start brushing around here, you'll see it's erasing all those lines. Alright, so any details you want to clear up, just brush white into that mask. Now, this folder here, color options, if you twirl that open, I have included 30 color options here, and the way these work is that you just turn on the visibility for that folder and it will apply a different color grade. Okay, by default, color option 1 is turned on, so just remember that. You'll get the same color grade across all your photos when you run the action. If you want to do your own coloring, just turn off color option 1, okay? But just remember that is turned on. I'll come back to the color options folder later. Going down, we have this folder here called Overall Glow. Now if I turn that on and off, you can see what that does. It looks for the highlights in your design and adds a glow to it. So if you think it's too strong, just turn the folder off. Most of the time, if you're running the photo on a subject where, you know, the majority of your subject is white, the glows will probably be a little bit too strong. So just knock down the opacity of this folder. So if you just select the folder and hit numbers on the keyboard, that will change the opacity. So if I want to change it to 30%, I just hit 3. Okay. I might lower it down. Actually, before I do that, I'll jump inside the folder and I'll talk to you about how it's set up. So you've got this layer here, Overall Glow, and this one here, I've got Overall Glow 2. I've got in brackets here opacity, just a reminder that you can increase that glow by changing the opacity of the layer. So this one here, you turn that one on and off. That one is the stronger of the two. Okay. Now, if you turn this layer on, okay, you'll notice firstly it does nothing. But if you click on this box here and change the color, you can actually apply a tint to that glow. Okay, so I can add a blue there, and you can see it's starting to add a tint. All right, so you can play with that, and it's the same with this one here. Okay, you can increase the opacity of this layer, say to 100. You see that's really strong. Okay, by default it's at 20. All right. So that's that folder. I might just lower this down to 20%. Okay, this folder here, bars, I've got in brackets here over photo. If I turn that one on and off, you can see those bars that are running over your photo. Okay, and you can remember those 4 pop-up windows when you played the action, those color range windows. So this was the second color range window. Okay, these are the bars here that are created. All right, so let's go inside here, and I'll talk to you about what's happening here. So you've got this. I'll just turn this one off for a second. You've got this one here called shadows. Now this one runs through just your subject. Okay, and it has a little drop shadow on the bars. All right. Now this one here, extend lines. If I turn that one on, I'll just turn this one on as well. These lines extend outwards from your subject. Alright, so I'll just go back at the top here. Now I've got these 2 layers here called move around. Now when I start moving this around, you'll see that it's starting to offset our subject within those lines. So just by default, I have sort of offset everything to the right a little bit. So, you know, grab that move around layer and start moving around to a different position and see, you know, you might get something you prefer. I might just keep it there for a second. I'll turn this one back on. And that's the same with this one here. You can move this one around. Okay. So I might move that one there. Okay, so that's the bars over photo folder. Now this layer here, main photo, I'll just zoom out a bit. If I turn this on and off, if I turn it off, then so this is the main visibility of your photo right here. So you want to keep this on pretty much most of the time. The only time when you want to start erasing it, I guess, is if you know, if you start brushing black into this mask, you're going to start hiding this layer. So if I start brushing black now, you'll see that it starts to erase it, and that's a pretty cool effect as well. You can sort of eat into the corners of your subject like that. Okay. Now something else that I like to do here is I like to, if you hold down Alt or Option and drag this main photo layer down, that creates a copy. What I like to do here is apply a bit of motion blur. So go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. Now the angle of the motion blur, you want to match up with the angle that you ran the action on. So mine was 45 degrees in this direction. So now that motion blur matches the bars, so I'll click OK. So if I turn this main photo layer off, you'll see that you've got this blurred copy underneath. So what I like to do here is just select the mask of the main photo, and I brush black and I sort of erase around the edges, so you get this really nice blend between your photo and the background. So, you know, I could go down here, brush a bit there, okay, something like that. Okay, so that's a cool technique that I like to use pretty much every time I run this action. Zoom out. So this layer here, main photo shadow. I've got to bring it to opacity. This is the shadow that's cast from your subject, so I can turn that on and off. You can see the shadow there. Okay, if you want it to be stronger, just drag this opacity up. Okay, so you can see it there. If you want it off, just simply turn it off. I might turn it off for this. I might actually bring back some more of the edges of my subject here. What I might also do is these bars here, this part here is distracting me a bit, so I might turn that off. I actually think I've cut out, yeah, I actually did a really poor job of selecting the kneecap here. So that's why that knee's cut off, but let's just ignore that for a second. Okay, so going on down, we've got the bars under photo. So if I turn this off, you can see all the bars there. Alright, so we'll go inside this folder here, and I'll talk about what's going on here. So we've got this one, noise. So if I'll zoom in here, just pick a darker area. So there's a real subtle amount of noise over these bars. You can see that I just added for a bit of texture. If I just set it to 100%, it'll be much more obvious. Okay, so if you want to increase the noise opacity there, you can. Alright, next you've got this one here called soft blurred reflection. I've got in brackets here again, move around. So I'll start moving that around, and you can see there's a yeah, soft reflection there you can play around with. If it's too strong, just knock down the opacity. It's at 90%. If I just hit 4, that'll change it to 40%. And play around with that. You can also play around with the blend mode. Just this one here is set to overlay. So if you want to be a bit more subtle, you can change it to soft light. Alright. And generally what I like to do to compare the two is just, say I start off with overlay, I'll switch it to soft light, and then just hold down Control or Command Z, and just keep hitting Control Z to preview the two. Gives you an idea of which one you think works better. Alright, I'll just run with the soft one for the moment. So these folders here, we've got medium bars, thin bars, thick bars, and 3D bar depth. Now, firstly we've got the medium bars. So if I turn that on and off, you can see those there. Alright, and I'll go inside here and I'll talk about how these folders are set up. So we've got the main layer here, medium bars. Turn that on and off. Alright, then you've got the reflection, and you can move these around wherever you want. So I can move this up here like that. Okay, and that's the same with all these folders. They've all got a reflection, so you can manually move them around where you want. Don't think you're stuck with the default result of the action. Jump inside these folders and start moving these reflections around. Now, this one here, if you want to use a color overlay, just turn on the visibility for that layer, and you'll see that it overlays a color. So if I wanted a blue, I could just change that color there. Okay, and that's the same setup in these folders. But I like the greens, so I'll run with that. Okay. Now what I also like to do is play around with the ordering of these folders. So if I wanted the thin bars to sit on top of the other bars, all I need to do is drag this up above the medium bars, and then you'll see that the thin bars come through. Okay. And something else I like to do, say if I drag this above the medium bars, and I like the small bars down here, the thin bars, but I don't want them up here. What I'll do, I'll just hold down Alt or Option, I'll drag that folder up to make a copy. I'll select the mask, hit Control or Command I to invert it. That will hide everything in the folder. So now what I can do is just select the mask, grab a white brush, and start brushing away here just to reveal those extra thin lines that are created. Alright, so thin bars, thick bars, all the same setup in here. Thick bars is an extra reflection you can play around with. If you try dragging the thick bars all the way to the top and see what you get. What I also like to do is jump inside these folders, and I'll select the thick bars layer. I will just zoom out, hit Control or Command T, and you can play around with scaling this right up as well. Okay, so you can see I scale those up, hit Enter to confirm that. I'll zoom in. Alright, that's looking pretty cool, and then you can start moving that reflection around. So you can see the soccer ball down here, which looks pretty cool. So I might actually leave that, or will I? Might be a bit too much. Maybe I'll undo it. But yeah, you get the point. So you can do that as well. I might clear up this soccer ball a bit. Just like that. Okay. 3D bar depth. What I might do is just firstly change this background color, make it a bit darker, so it's a bit more obvious what's going on here. So the 3D bar depth, I'll turn that on and off. You can see, where's a good point to look at? Just over here. Look there as I turn this on and off. You can see how the bars sort of extend down like that. It's got that 3D depth. That's coming from this folder, alright? So if you go inside here, you've got the medium bar depth and the thick bar depth, so you can turn them on or off individually. If you don't want any depth at all, just turn the entire folder off. Okay, and again, you can even that's got a reflection, so I can start moving that around. I might move around this top one because I'm looking at the bottom here. It's a bit more obvious to see what's going on. So you see, I start moving that around, you get a different reflection. Okay, and if you want this bar depth to be darker, what you could do is select the medium bar depth layer, hold down Control Alt L, hit that, and I'll just reset that. And you could, drag this in, and that will darken those bars, which I might do just a little bit. Alright, I will click OK there. Okay, so that's the 3D bar depth folder. Now this layer here, background design, if I turn it on and off, you can see that that's the background design there. And what that is, it's basically a snapshot of everything here. It's scaled right up and it's set to soft light, so it'll blend very softly with your background color. Okay, and here's the background color layer. You can change that to whatever you want. If you wanted a red, a blue, okay, you can do that, or white. White will filter out that background design layer. Okay, and the reason why that's a cream color layer when you change to white is because we've got that color option on. Okay, so just remember that color option will affect all the layers underneath here. Okay, now if you wanted to export this design on a transparent background, say you didn't want the background color, you can just turn these three off. Okay, and then you can see you've got the checkerboard pattern. So now you can save that out as a PNG, drop that onto your other work, and you're done. So I'll turn those back on. Now I'll jump back into these files here. There's a couple of things I forgot to talk about. If you 12 open this arrow here, click on that, it reveals the layer styles for that layer. So you might just drag this down again, like that. Okay, so the one I sometimes like to play with is the gradient overlay. So if you double click on that, that will bring up this layer style box, and you can see the opacity of the gradient overlay is very low. As I start turning that up, you can see that it starts brightening up some areas, but if you change the angle, you get like a different light reflection direction. So you can play around with that. It's very subtle, so that's up to you. That's the same as the thick bars as well. That's got the same setup down the bottom here. Okay. Now I might jump back up into the color options folder, and so what I like to do, it's very simple. I just go down the line here and turn these on, see what I like. Okay. I don't mind this color here. But what I also like to do is combine different folders together. So say I only wanted 50% of this color, I'll just hit 5 on the keyboard, and that'll drop the opacity of that color to 50%. And then you can just keep going down, and then looking at different color combinations. Okay, maybe I just want 30% of this one. Okay. That's actually looking pretty good. Now another thing you can do is move these holes around. So with the thin bars here, if I just start moving that around, you'll see that those thin bars are going to move. But just be careful that when you start moving them around, you'll see at this left hand corner here, as I start moving that around, it's chopped off right there. So just be careful when moving these folders around, and you can experiment with flipping. So for example, this background design layer here, I could flip that horizontal so not everything's going in the same direction. Edit, transform, flip horizontal, and you can see the lines are going the opposite direction. And this is really big, this background design layer, so you can actually just start moving that around and you'll get a different effect. But I will undo that. Just going to lower the opacities down to 30%. Actually prefer the white. I'll run with that. Okay, so don't forget, to just, when you think you're happy with the design, quickly jump back into these folders, move the reflections around. This is what I like to do. Okay. Move them around because you might get something you prefer, alright? And when you think you've got something that you like, okay, just again, hold down Control Command Z, keep hitting it, and preview the before and after. See which one you like better. Okay, don't mind that. Alright, so I'm done with this image. That is all the layers, and that's how to use them. Very simple. So let's compare this against the original. Okay, so if you want to compare against the original photo, just turn off the divide folder. So there's the before, and there's the after. Now another thing to talk about is if you wanted your design to fall back onto your original background, just turn off the background color layer. Okay, and that will fall on, you know, say if there was a stadium, turn off this, say if there was a stadium behind this guy, and I turned off the background color layer, that stadium would start showing through. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Okay, I am going to open up the next example now, so I will just get that set up. Alright, so the first thing I've got to do is create a new layer. So Control-Shift-N or Command-Shift-N to create a new layer. It must be called brushed. And my subject is reasonably easy to select here because he's on a white background. So I'm just going to hit W, go to the Magic Wand tool, click on that white background. Now the reason why you need to invert the selection is if I fill the selection in with a color now, it's going to fill in that background because that is where we selected, but I want everything but the background. So invert that selection, Control-Shift-I, Command-Shift-I, okay, and Option backspace or Option backspace, fill that with a color. Alright, so that's my brush layer, I've got all that done. I'm just going to open the actions here. Before I do that, I'll just go to image size. I'll show the size of my photo again, 2200 by 3400. Alright. Now, for this one, we're trying to recreate this here. So you can see the bars are very long, and you can see the angle here. So I am going to run this one here. So we've got the long bar length, and we want those lines going in that direction, and quite a steep angle, 45 degrees. So I'm going to click play, and I'll just wait for this window to pop up. Right, click continue here. So these are the thin bars. Just click OK there. Next size up. Remember, these are the second window is the bars that run through your subject. So that's a good amount. Okay. Let's go like that. And remember to hold down Shift to increase your selection, but I like this range here. I've got some bars created up the top of him and right down the bottom. Alright, so click OK and I will jump to the result. Alright, action's all done, so I'll collapse the actions panel. I need to collapse all these folders, so Control Alt or Command Option, click on this arrow, reopen the folder, and everything is collapsed. So firstly, I need to clean up his face here, so I'm going to jump to the mask of the Reveal Normal Photo layer. Hit B, grab a soft brush. Black is my active color. I need to flip that to white, so hit X, and I'll start brushing over the mask to clear that up. Everything else looks pretty good. I'm going to use that motion blur technique again, so I'm going to grab the main photo, hold down Alt or Option, drag that down to make a copy. Okay, and go to Filter Blur, Motion Blur. Now currently this blur is going off in the wrong direction. It's going at 45 degrees. I need minus 45 degrees, go off in the opposite direction. Click OK. I'm going to select the mask of the main photo layer, hit B. I need black as my active color, so hit X again, and I can start brushing around the edges here. Okay, and it'll start to blend down onto that motion blur layer. Brush down there, here. Okay, that is looking pretty good. I like the position of these reflections already. It's the default result. I'll have a quick look around. What I might quickly check out is moving the thin bars above the medium bars, what that looks like. Okay, that's way too much, so I'm going to undo that. I'll try moving the thick bars up here. Nope. I'll try moving the thick bar up to the very top. No, I think that think the original combination looks the best. Threaded bar depth, I'll check it. Probably don't need it because you can't see the edges of the bars, so I'll just turn that off. Background color, try a lighter color. No, we want a darker color because we are wanting to match this here. So I'll just close that. So looking pretty good so far. I'm just going to jump into the color options and turn off that one. Can't remember what color it was. I think it was 11. Okay, 11. I might try combine this with another one, maybe this one. I'll use 50% of this color, so I just hit 5. I'll try hitting this to 50% as well. No, I'll keep that at 100. Okay, and something else what I like to do is, you know, add a selective, so that might be chopped off on your screen, but selective color layer. And if you twirl this open, I like to jump down to the neutrals, and you can play around with the tones here. Okay, so just drag those handles around and then start, you get a feel for different colors, see what you like. Also like to jump into the black, so you can add colors into the darker tones of the image. So I could add some red into the shadows. I can make the blacks lighter if I wanted to. I think that looks pretty good though. Okay, now the next step, if I open up this example here, you can see there's glows coming from the warmer areas of the design. So there's two techniques we're going to use here to achieve that. Firstly, what we need to do is create a snapshot of our entire design on one layer. Now to do that, you want to select the very top visible layer or folder in your layer panel and hold down Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E, and that will create a snapshot of your design and put it all on one layer. Okay, so do that. Now what we want to do is we want to select the warmer tones in our design. So you can do that through the channels here. So if you select channels, and we want to grab the red channel here because we're trying to grab those warmer tones. So if you hold down Control or Command and click on the red channel, go back to your layers here. With that snapshot layer selected, you hit Control J, and that will duplicate the pixels off that layer. So I can just delete this layer now. So if I start moving this around, you can see it's taken that selection, we've duplicated the pixels off that merged layer. So what I can do now is change the blend mode of this layer to color dodge. Okay, and now what I want to do is just add a little bit of blur to it. So if you go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, you can see is the original, and when you increase the blur radius, you get a nice bit of glow. Now if it's too strong, just knock down that opacity. It's generally what I like to do. I like to drag it back to 0. Okay, and then just slowly start increasing that opacity, or just again hit the numbers on the keyboard. 60% is good. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to add more of a glow to these, to the orange areas. So the way I like to do that is create a new layer, set the blend mode of that layer to screen. Okay, now I want to grab orangey red tone here, use a soft brush, and now when I start brushing, you'll see that I add these cool glows. And what I might do, I'm just going to zoom out. Change the size of your brush, just use the left and right square brackets. I'm going to create a huge glow there and down here as well. And there. I'm just going to turn the opacity down just a bit there. And I'm just going to create a new layer again. I like to do this on a few layers. Set this to screen again. Now I will use a smaller brush. Change the opacity of the brush to 50%. Change it to 30%, much softer. And I'm just, adding a little dot over the highlights. Just, it gives it a little bit of a glow. Alright, that's looking pretty cool. What I might check out is dragging these three layers. I'll put them under the color options so it adopts the colors in this folder, so it's matched up a bit better. So that looks good. I might just group these. There's the before and there's the after. So you definitely want to play around with that technique on your designs, add a bit of glow, see if that looks any better. Now, I'll just turn this off for a second, and I'll go back into the color options. I'm just going to rename these so I know which ones I chose. Turn those off for a sec. Some of these color options down the bottom, I'll just find a good example. You know, the colors are much more intense, okay, so, and the way I've done these is through the gradient map, alright, so if you twirl open these folders and there's a gradient map layer, you can change these around. So if you double click on the gradient map, you'll see that this is the colors that I've picked. So if you click on this bar, okay, you've got the gradient editor here. So the left side here represents the shadows, the darker tones in your image, and over here is the highlights. So if I wanted to add a red to the shadows, whoops, it's a bit too strong, I could just add a red there, okay. If I want to remove some of these points, or you can add points just by clicking around, okay, it's a bit brighter, so you can add a whole heap of different colours. That looks terrible, so I'm just going to delete that. So you get the point. If you wanted to, you know, create your own, just turn off all these, and right at the top here, create a gradient map layer, okay, and then just start playing around with these. So in the shadows, maybe you want the shadows to be just a little bit brighter. As you head into the mid-tones, maybe you want a blue, and then you want it to go to a brown, yeah. Or maybe you want the highlights to be completely that tone there. Okay, and drag around these handles here to adjust their positions. Okay, so playing around with that colouring technique as well. Okay, so I'll just turn these colours back on. Now, just a couple more things I will point out. Now, if you wanted to create a blend between the original background and all the divide elements here, what you could do is select the background color layer, select the mask, okay? Now, if you hit G on the keyboard, that'll activate the gradient tool, and what you want is, if you click on this bar at the top here, you want that going from black to white. There should be a preset there you can just click on. Now if you select that mask, hit G, and then just drag a line up from the bottom upwards, what that will do is you can see that it has removed that background color, and it's now falling back onto the original background. Okay, so that's a good way you can create a blend between your background and all the divide elements. Now lastly is something else you could do with the bar layers, is you've got these reflection layers here. So, you know, I'll move that around, you can see the reflection there. And what that reflection is, it's a, you know, it's just a copy of your subject. Scale it up. I've added a few little effects to it just to make it look a bit more like a reflection. But what you could do is actually place a different image in that background and have that as a reflection. Now to do that, what you could do is just turn off the reflection for that layer there. Now just select the medium bars layer, and if you go to File, Place Embedded, okay, I'm just going to pick, don't really have a suitable image here, but I'll just pick, say, I'll just go with this one here. It won't be the best example because there's so much white in it, but okay, so I've got that soccer play in the design. Now if I hold down Alt or Option between the photo and the medium bars layer, you'll see that white box with the arrow. Alright, that's the clipping mask icon, so if you click on that, it will clip it to the medium bars layer. So this photo layer will only be visible where those bars are. So now when I start moving that around, you can see that soccer player starts appearing over the bars. Alright, and you can play around with the opacity of this layer as well. Change the blend mode. into an overlay or multiple should, oh no, it's not going to work. You can play around with different blend modes. You can add a layer mask to that, okay, and select the mask and just brush away, change the opacity of my brush away those hard edges, okay. But like I said, this isn't the greatest image to use because there's so much white. But yeah, say if I wanted another image here, I could just use that same technique, okay, import it, then clip it, alright, and you can do the same with these other ones as well. You can add a reflection into, a different reflection into the thick bars, okay. Alright guys, I've just compared this against the original, so there's the before, and there's the after, alright. If you're having troubles with the action or need some tips, I'll put a link down to my help page below. So just click on that. If you get an error, look for the error on that page, okay? If you're still stuck, go ahead and email me with some details, what you're having troubles with, and I'll help you out. But if not, I hope you have a good time using it. Thanks.